Hey y'all, it's been a little while, and I thought I would pick up my series on my favorite movie of the year for every year, beginning in 1986, the year that I first started really going to movies, where movies became a regular part of my life. And I don't know, maybe up to the present, I'm not sure. But in any case, I had this idea going a few months ago. I think the last segment I did of this series, if you will, was maybe 3 months ago, and then the videos I've done since were on other subjects. And again, I don't know how many people this really interests, but it interests me, and because it's just I don't know, just talking about this stuff is interesting. Talking about movies makes me reflect on art and where I was and where I am, and maybe what's good and what isn't good, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're also a movie type person, not necessarily a movie an encyclopedic film geek, although if you're that too, that's also fine. But I certainly am not. I have seen nowhere near all the movies that have been made, but these are my personal favorites for each year. The last year that I had was 1995. That was the last year that I covered in this series, so I'm picking up in the year 1996. I'm going to get this. This is a year that when I went through the list of movies, just to remind myself of what came out that year, what I remembered seeing. Was not a year where any particular movie really stood out. And for something to be the movie of the year for me, it has to be. That means a couple things. It means it's what I take to be objectively good, which is, of course, that's a paradox because it's filtered through my subjectivity, but still what I would hold to be a good movie, just in and of itself, but also something that if it was a favorite of mine, it means it really resonated with me. In 1996, I don't remember seeing any movies that really resonated to that extent, but there were a lot of really good movies. Some runners up for that year that I decided. One of them, Bottle Rocket. This is something a movie that I discussed in another video about little movies movies that don't get a lot of hype, but that I wanted to highlight, which I did in that particular video. And Bottle Rocket was one of those movies. Bottle Rocket is, I think, the debut of Wes Anderson, but it's the least Wes Anderson-esque movie of all of Wes Anderson's movies, which is why I think I like it the best, because it was before he just got sort of caught up in his own shtick, and I'm not the hugest fan of the whole Wes Anderson aesthetic, as it's become known, and as we, as much as it stands out, as much as it is sort of a testament to him and his originality. Bottle Rocket is my favorite movie of his, just because it doesn't really have any of those affectations. It's a hilarious indie movie with it's the first movie with, I think, the Wilson brothers, Luke and Owen Wilson. This may be his best role. Certainly one of his funniest roles. He plays the character Dignan, which something about just the name. I know people have the name Dignan, but something about it's an unusual name, and there's just something about the name itself that's kind of funny, and he's very funny in it. So Bottle Rocket, from 1996 stands out. Sleepers is another movie that was a 1996 movie that I get. That's a runner-up for me. About the, and I think I did a whole video about Sleepers, and in fact I know I did, and it's how it covers the issue of pedogate, and one of the earlier movies that I can recall, about systematic institutional abuse of kids. I mean, I'm making it sound like kind of a downer, but in the movie these kids get revenge on their tormentors. So it's not really a downer. It's a star-studded cast. It's got a lot of names in it. Anyway, Sleepers is also a runner-up. Hamlet, as directed by Kenneth Branagh, is a movie from 1996. It's also a runner-up for me. This is a version of Hamlet in which there were absolutely no cuts. It's 4 hours long. There's an intermission. When I was teaching regularly, I always enjoyed teaching Hamlet. I was usually the only one in that room, but who was really enjoying himself during during the delivery of those lectures or whatever. Whatever I was doing to try to get these illiterate youngsters to care about one of the classics of the English language. But I always used this movie as a study guide, and it's a remarkably ambitious project. It's not a complete success in my assessment, but it's very well made just the same. I think it deserves recognition. That's why I'm giving it a runner-up status. And also, this is kind of a unusual one for me, but I would say the movie Scream, which came out in 1996, also deserves runner-up recognition. When I was a kid, when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school, slasher films were a big thing. Everybody was with kids, even though they were all R-rated. The main audience was kids, and they were the ones who contributed to the popularity of these movies. I was never a fan. In fact, I never saw any of these movies. Never wanted to. It just didn't appeal to me. Never saw any of the Jason movies. Never saw any of the Freddy movies. The first movie that I saw related to Freddy was a movie called Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which came out sometime in the 90s after the after the Freddy series was over with. The Nightmare on Elm Street series was over with, and it was it was kind of the bridge that led to I guess that led Wes Craven to make Scream. It was a more call it postmodern, if you will, if you want. I don't really like that categorization, but it was a movie about horror movies that was self-aware, and I'm talking about the movie Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Wes Craven's New Nightmare was not a comedy at all, and I think what makes Scream interesting and what made it so influential is that it took this horror genre, the slasher film genre, and took it in this new direction where they became self-aware. The movies, I think in the 70s and 80s, for the most part, were not done in a way that was in any sense self-aware. Of the tropes, as they say, of the genre. But Scream had this intelligence to it. it was scary, but it was also funny, and it was much more interesting. For me, and that was kind of a turning point for me with vis-a-vis the whole horror genre, which I'm much more inclined to be interested in now than I was prior to Scream, and to a lesser extent to the movie Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So I think Scream was obviously there's been all the sequels, a lot of them which I guess they're of varying quality, and there are a lot of sort of knockoffs of the Scream formula, if you will. But Scream was, I think, a very very influential insofar in the way that it changed the genre, made it more self-aware, made it like we could laugh about the cliches and so forth. So that's the runner-up also from '96. My winner from the year 1996 would be, I decided it was Fargo, the Coen Brothers movie. Very very well known, very well liked. I think people think of Fargo and they just think of the humor of it, and they forget that it's also just a really brutal and disturbing movie. And the Frances McDormand character as the sheriff, which incidentally, is viewed through the eyes of a movie aware or media aware person today, is very refreshing, because her character, even though she's a female sheriff, she's not like a girl boss. She's not like a stick it to men, I hate men, kind of a person. It's not pandering to identity politics or anything. She's just this quirky, likable, and strange combination of smart and also naive. She in a way, she puts two and two together. She figures things out, but she just doesn't understand evil, and that's what she says at the end of the movie, where she confronts this massive evil that she's been a witness to, and she just says, I don't get it. I just don't get it. So that's my movie of the year, even though I haven't gone back to see. I guess and Fargo is a TV show now, right? They made a TV show out of it. So it's its whole franchise now. I haven't gone back and watched Fargo, I don't think, since I saw it. But from what I'm remembering of the movies of 1996, it's the winner from 1996. That's my movie of the year for 1996. 1996 again, not the hugest year for me when it comes to movies. 1997. Oh my gosh. 1997 has contains the abominable Titanic, which I hated, which I still hate, which I feel that in talking about movies from 1997, I have to exercise my memory of Titanic. I hated that movie on so many levels. I'm not going to go into it all now. Maybe that should be the subject for a standalone video. Or maybe an article or something. I don't, if it's interesting enough. But it was a combination of my hatred of Titanic and the fact that everybody else seemed to love it, and it was a huge hit. I mean, a humongous hit. Um, at the time, it made me hate Leonardo DiCaprio. I've mellowed on him since. Uh, it made me completely turn against Kate Winslet, whom I had liked up to then and had a little bit of a crush on. No lie, I can't conceal it. But after Titanic, I said, "We're through, Kate Winslet. That's it." And I took off my crush ring. I had a ring on my finger for representing the crush that I had on her. I took it and I stomped it underfoot and I said, "We are done, Kate. That's it. We're done. No more." Um, yeah. So, not my movie of the year for 1997 is not Titanic. Absolutely, positively not Titanic. My runners up for 97 are, first of all, The Game, David Fincher's follow up to Seven. Good movie, intricate, well done, surprise, happy ending. Took me off guard, especially after Seven, which is the most unhappy ending. Well, maybe not the most unhappy ending, but the most shockingly awful ending. Uh, but The Game, is this creepy kind of movie that has a surprise happy ending. So it's, I guess, the other side of the coin. Um, Another runner-up from 1997 is a movie called Copland. I thought this was Sylvester Stallone rehabilitating himself, trying to come back. He'd been in a slump for a while. After the 80s were over, people didn't want to watch his stuff anymore. People weren't into Rocky and Rambo. That sort of thing was out of style. And so he came back as this, he did this method thing, where he's this washed up guy, sort of, paralleling, I guess, where his own career was, or how he felt about himself and his own career at that point. That's me reading into it, but it really worked. And so star-studded cast, very very much a guy film. A lot of. I think this was the movie, the one movie where Ray Liotta is a nice guy. is actually a good guy. Um, is kind of a hero, and it's worth watching because it's the redemption story of Sylvester Stallone's character, who starts out just as this somebody that nobody takes seriously and everybody just kind of thinks is a loser, and then he turns it around, and is goes on this crusade and is against corruption and is willing to be self-sacrificing. It's a good movie, good to watch, fun to watch. But the winner from 1997, Boogie Nights. This is P.T. Anderson, not Wes Anderson's debut, and it's still by far my favorite movie of his. It's funny. It's so funny. This is the movie that made Marky Mark into Mark Wahlberg. Made him a serious actor, even though there's a lot of comedy in it as well. It's a movie that takes this. I don't want my endorsement of Boogie Nights to be construed as any kind of apologia for pornography, because it certainly is not that. But it's about these people in the porn industry, and another career making turn from Burt Reynolds, who I understood hated this movie, was very grumpy about it. But he's so good in it. And talking about another comeback, from a down and out, formerly on top actor. This was just like Sylvester, what Copland was for Sylvester Stallone. That's what Burt Reynolds was for Boogie Nights. So I don't know if you're squeamish about nudity and you just are and for you being anti-porn, which I'm anti-porn as well. But if that means for you that you can't possibly enjoy a movie about people who get involved in the porn industry, and they're really you see how they're a bunch of lost souls, and they find a sense of belonging in this place. But gosh, really, really funny. Also, period details. This is a movie, maybe one of the first movies that was set in it was from the 90s, but it was set in the 70s and also in the 80s, and it was one of the first to indulge in 70s 80s nostalgia, in a way that was it's the first good movie to do that. There was that The Wedding Singer, which did the 80s nostalgia thing maybe a year prior, but that movie is just disposable. Whereas Boogie Nights is art. It's cinematic art. Highly recommended. All right, and my favorite movies from 1998. This was also not like a huge year for movies for me, but a couple of honorable mentions. One is a movie called SLC Punk with Matthew Lillard. This is not a movie that gets much hype at all, gets much attention at all today. But it's about the punk scene in the middle of Mormon country. You can see why that would have some appeal for me. Given that I have an interest in both punk, new wave, and Mormons, and it's from the point of view of somebody who's I don't know. I don't really know what to say about. I don't know how to hype up this movie. But I think it's worth seeing. Last Days of Disco also gets a runner up. Last Days of Disco is a Whit Stillman movie. I think Metropolitan was my movie of 1990, and maybe Barcelona I chose for 1993, or maybe it was a runner up. I can't remember right now. But Last Days of Disco is the completion of the trilogy of movies that Whit Stillman made in the 90s, with these in this very unique kind of universe where all of the characters are well-bred, preppy types living in or around New York City, who are hyper literate, who speak in complete sentences, and lots of bon mots, lots of just sterling dialogue. But if you don't like movies where it's just a bunch of talking, then you won't like Whit Stillman movies, and you won't like The Last Days of Disco. But it's also interesting as far as its take on disco, the disco years, and the fall of disco. Just an interesting movie all around. But my winner for 1998, my favorite movie from 1998, Buffalo 66. Yes, sir. This is a movie with what's his name? I'm ashamed to say I can't remember his name right now. But he was this very interesting, idiosyncratic, and for I guess very like had these sort of model good looks guy for a while, but he came under fire. He got canceled for one reason or another. I think he was conservative in politics, uh, uh, and there was maybe some other stuff that led to his cancellation. But Buffalo 66 is about this. He plays the lead role. Um, this guy whose name I'm not recalling, the actor's name I'm not recalling, actor and I believe director of this movie. Later did the Brown Bunny, which I cannot endorse, but this movie's about this guy who wants to prove to his parents that he's uh, um, he's redeemed himself, that he's living a good life. He's desperate to do that, and so he gets this girl that he meets to just come with him and play his wife. And all along, he's this very this on one level just this very aggressive, uh, pushy, always talking, always complaining, always with a bad attitude, kind of guy. But there's a vulnerability to him as well that eventually becomes apparent. Um, and it's set in Buffalo, and his parents are Buffalo Bills fans who just can't get over the Super Bowl where Chris Norwood missed the field goal, which would have won the Super Bowl for the Buffalo Bills, who went on to go to the Super Bowl 3 more times and lose 3 more times. So there's lots of Buffalo Bills lore, but you don't have to be a football fan to enjoy it. It's incorporated into the story really well because his parents are just these awful people who basically don't care about their son, don't never paid much attention to him, and they've just got this game on in repeat, where this Super Bowl game where Norwood in the movie he's just Wood, uh, but he misses this field goal, and the final scenes of the movie, the hero, if you want to call him that, tries to assassinate Wood, who's now just this washed up. I don't think this is the actual trajectory of the actual kicker who missed that field goal, but in the movie, the alter ego of Chris Norwood, who again in the movie, I think for copyright purposes, is just named Wood. I don't know if they ever mentioned I don't know if they mentioned the Bills, like the franchise, the Bills, but it's Buffalo. Just sort of like how Kenny Powers was John Rocker, but they never mentioned the Atlanta Braves. That same kind of deal. But he's ultimately redeemed. It's a very funny movie, but a very touching movie, and a very well shot movie. It's black and white. It's beautiful. The cinematography, as I'm recalling, is gorgeous. So that's my winner from the year 1998. So, to recap, 1996, the winner is Fargo. 1997, the winner is Boogie Nights. 1998, my favorite movie of the year, the winner is Buffalo 66. Before I conclude, I also want to go back, and I reserve the right to do this because there are sometimes I forget about movies that came out in a particular year. I forget about them, and this is a movie that I totally forgot, from 1994, called Heavenly Creatures. This is a movie that, well, what can I say about this movie? It shows the power of friendship. It's all about the friendship between the intense friendship between these two young girls, one of whom is Kate Winslet. This is the first movie that she was in. So when I saw this movie, you know, I was young then too, so it wasn't creepy for me to have developed a crush on her from this movie. If I developed a crush on her today, that would be a different story. But I was allowed to in 1994 at age 23. So they're two teenage girls. They meet up and they create this whole world together. And there's a lot that's really fantastical and there's an exuberance to these fantasies that they create together, but they get caught up in this really malignant pattern. And there's a cruelty that they indulge in one another that leads them to both commit a heinous crime. This is also, by the way, based on a true story. This actually happened. And, you know, this movie is both horrific and heartbreaking. It lets you see these girls and you know, you get to like them and sympathize with them, but you also see where they're clearly going wrong and where the fanaticism of their imagination, where it leads them. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the story, the Slender Man story from a few years ago, how this group of three girls got together who were all into creepypasta and Slender Man, and then two of them decided to try to kill the other one for some reason. It was all based on their Slender Man fandom. This was like an early iteration of that kind of theme, based on a true story. And as I'm recalling, one of those two girls later became a famous author of mystery stories. I don't remember her name right now, but if you look up the movie, you can find that out. So this is Peter Jackson, you know, 4 years before the, I think 4 years was that when, or maybe longer, it'd be 6 years. Whenever, anyway, it was a few years before Peter Jackson became world famous as the director of the Lord of the Rings movies. I can't remember Fellowship of the Ring. Did it come out in, I'm thinking it came out in 2000 right now. This is before that, a somewhat obscure movie, but one of the, I think the earliest movie that Kate Winslet was ever in. Great movie, definitely worth seeing. Worthy of at least a runner-up, or I might have to re-examine 1994. Maybe it would take the place of whichever movie that I have currently as my favorite of 1994. I have to go back and think about that. Anyway, there you go. Three of my faves from 3 years. One honorable mention from a year that I had neglected earlier. And the series continues.